Hi, my name's Val West. I'd like to talk to you about Kingdom Life School. Sorry about the motorbike going past. I went first of all to the 1 week Kingdom Life School and determined not to do the rest of the year. Couldn't spend that much time or money. However, during the first week, I was healed. God healed my back amazingly of arthritis. And it was so lovely to be free of the heavy-duty painkillers. It was an instant healing, although I'm ashamed to tell you that I carried my painkillers around for a whole week just in case, but I didn't need them. That was the first thing. The best experience I had during this KLS experience was that the very best one was that I learnt intimacy with God and how to meet with him as my Papa. And because of my background, that was so special. So that was great. Another great experience that I'll never forget and I'll always be grateful for is that I learnt how to go up to strangers in the street, in Poole High Street and around, and either pray for them to be healed or to lead them to the Lord, which is my passion. I've always been into outreach, but never seen the results that I have since Kingdom Life School. Then now we do it in my church, and during lockdown I've not been doing it. I've been really missing it. So last Thursday I went out and had to go then on my own. It was a bit scary, and I did speak to 4 people, good conversations. No one came to the Lord this time, but I'm going again this week. One of the biggest things that happened to me was I found I had to change my thinking. My thinking got changed as I went on and on with it, which sounds crazy, but I really believe that what I'm experiencing now is more of the normal Christian life than I've ever experienced. I mean, I've never been a pew dweller. I've always been involved, but wow, this is so different. If someone's thinking of putting aside a year to do this, I would say you won't regret it. If you come and you give your all, God will give his all back to you. That's all. Thank you.
I went into KLS knowing that I'd had the privilege of doing many other courses before, but I so badly didn't want this one to be yet another intellectual exercise. And for me it certainly wasn't. It was more a time of encounter and of building intimacy in my relationship with God and doing life rather than religion. Growing up, I was told that asking questions and giving opinions was tantamount to back-chatting. And so I suppose because there were some unpleasant experiences or unpleasant consequences, and timing was probably my issue, that I basically gave up asking questions, giving opinions, sort of throwing out the baby with the bathwater, as it were, and just accepting everything at face value. But at KLS, I was encouraged to ask questions, that it was okay, that actually God quite likes it because it builds dialogue and relationship. So yeah, that was quite a mindset change for me. And it's a journey, certainly one I've not completed yet. And again, one of the key verses for me was in Hebrews 12 verse 1, where it says that we're transformed by the renewing of our mind. And that certainly was something that came alive to me in this year. There are many stories and experiences that I had over this year, far too many to recount here, but one that I really want to share just shows how God is so intimately involved with our lives, is when we did our mission trips. And I was on the trip that went to Angoulême in France. I was part of a team of 5, but the only one who didn't actually speak French. And actually I was okay with that. I didn't have an issue with it at all. But just before we were leaving, I had a little moment where I thought, I really hope the people in France aren't disappointed because there's a bit of a language barrier. And sort of in my head I thought, oh, but God has got these gifts of interpretation, of tongues, and of speaking in tongues, and we use the term tongues to denote a foreign language as well. And I sort of thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun if God brought those gifts to bear in this time. And I didn't think anything more of it. And we went on the trip and we had an excellent time, and we were able to just share God with people, and that was really amazing. And then on the last day we had a time of sharing, and one of the ladies from the church stood up and she said, for her it's just been amazing, and one of the things that happened during this time was that when somebody spoke in English, she actually heard them speaking in French. And I just sat there, blown away, and just so encouraged that, it's so easy to limit God, isn't it? And yet he, the little things that we sort of throw out maybe in jest, or things that are actually important to us are important to him as well. And I was so encouraged by God doing that. It really just kind of made the trip for me in many ways. Although we'd seen and experienced so much of God in that time, this little thing was like God's giving me a tiny little gift and saying, look, I heard, and here you are. So that was really, really special for me. And I think that KLS became a place for me where I could create space for God in my life that could then overflow into just my everyday life and my everyday thinking. And and it was really good and really special. And the friends that I've made and the times that I've had with God have just been amazing.
Hello. Some of you know me but might not recognise me under all the hair. It's Anne. And I've recently done KLS. I did KLS 1 the first year it was on, and I did KLS the second year at year 3. So they're up for having a gap in between if you can't commit for 2 years. And the reason I did it initially was that I saw that on a Friday afternoon they do outreach, which was the thing I really, really wanted to do. Those of you who know me know that Mike travels for his work, and I'm often lucky enough to go with him. And when you're overseas, people walk up to you and say, tell me about your faith. And it was wonderful. I have all these opportunities to talk to people in Asia and Africa about my faith, but not so much here. And I wanted to have some help with learning how to do it here, which is why I signed up. And there were some wonderful things that happened on year 1 for a particular instance. I was with Jake, who was a very young KLS year 1 student. We were together and sitting on a seat in Full High Street and started chatting to another chap. And his wife came out of the shop and came across and told us she had arthritis. So Jake, being young and eager, leapt to his feet and said, we're Christians, we can pray for you. So we did. And we prayed for her arthritis, and she was very encouraging about that. And then she said, as a sort of a throwaway remark, well, I've just been buying some very expensive cream. And we said, well, you'll have a refund. And she said, oh, no, I won't get a refund. I said, well, pray for that. We'll pray for you to get a refund. She, oh, no, it's cheeky account. I'll possibly ask God for a refund. I said, oh, God doesn't mind cheeky prayers. He knows your needs. We'll pray for a refund. So we did. So a few weeks later, Jake and I are in the high street again, and we saw this couple. And they saw us. As soon as they saw us, she put her hands out and went, my hands have been healed. So, of course, we're saying, oh, thank you, Jesus. And then she says, and I got my refund. And do you know, that lady felt that the refund was more of a miracle than a healing. And that was so encouraging and so exciting. Because we were together as a team, as it were, it kind of encourages you to take that first step in a public place. So that, for me, was the highlight of year 1. And then in year 2, which, as I say, was last year, again, outreach, there were some wonderful things. And one of my favourite memories, I think, will be on the mission trip we did in Dorset, a large Anglican church in Dorset, which had, I have to say, on this mission trip, I ended up in the building for the whole weekend, and which wouldn't have been my choice. And I did 5 different youth groups. Again, wouldn't have been my choice. But on one of them, I think it was the Saturday night, it was like a drop-in for teenage kids, 5th years, 6 years, that sort of age. Not Christian children, most of them. We had so Val and I were sitting together on a settee in the lobby, and there were 5 teenage girls opposite us, and each time they were putting the girl we were speaking to in the middle, and we were giving the girls encouraging words. In other words, we were asking the Lord for something to say to them. And each time a girl sat in the middle and we had a word for them, they're going to each other, "Cool, that's so right. Cool, yeah, wow, that's her. How do you know?" And they were so excited. So these 5 teenage girls who didn't even know who Jesus was went away knowing, not only in their hearts, they knew that God was real and that he knew them intimately, and he knew the things, like precious things on their heart. So this year you haven't been able to come to KLS to try it out, and I don't know whether things I'm telling you will happen because of this lockdown and changes and Zoom and all that sort of thing. But I do know, as a result of doing KLS, really, that there are other ways of reaching out. I don't have to physically be in the high street. I don't have to physically be in a building with my friends and fellow students. But I've joined Facebook, for example, and I forward messages on to friends and family, and many of whom don't know who Jesus is. I'm quite gentle about it, the messages I send on. But what has been so encouraging about that has been that many of my non-Christian friends have responded positively to them. In fact, one Facebook message I forwarded without checking, and somebody from the church sent a note saying, by the way, it wasn't so-and-so who said that, it was somebody else. But a non-Christian neighbour of mine responded to me and said, "I don't care who said it. It was a wonderful thing to say." And I just want to thank the Lord that these opportunities are out there, whether we're using our phones, Facebook, whatever other social media we're using. It is possible still to do outreach. It is possible still to be an evangelist in some quiet way. And I just want to thank KLS for prompting me somehow to be part of Facebook and some of these other more modern evangelistic tools that we can use. So if you're thinking of it and evangelism is on your heart, it really does give you some skills for that. Thank you for listening.